secret about you. You have something about yourself that you try so hard every day to love. And sometimes that feels impossible. You have this thing about yourself that you don't want anybody else to see. And what you really don't want anyone else to look at is the fact that you don't love that thing. Because we are this totally empowered queer community, and we have so much pride about our bodies and our identities and all of it. But not you. You have that thing that you just can't quite love about yourself. Now imagine you're thinking one day about that thing and how lonely and solitary it feels that you struggle so much with it. And your phone rings. And the call is from someone who just admires the heck out of how much you love yourself. And would you please get up on stage for 12 to 14 minutes and talk about how awesome that thing about you is? So when I got that call, the first thing that I said was, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to do that. And of course, underneath that, I'm thinking, holy hell, have you got the wrong guy? Because they asked me to come here and talk about body love. And that's my thing, is my body. It's just all these like little things about my body that I'm not quite there on. So to stand up here and talk to you all about how much I love my body and you can totally love yours too, it felt really disingenuous. But I'd already said yes. So I started thinking about what can I contribute? I'm learning. Every day I'm coming closer. I'm finding ways to love myself, and I'm getting better at it. I'm way better at it than I was years ago or even weeks ago when I got that call. So I started thinking about what I could share about my process that might be useful. And as I reflect on the moments when I have the most compassion and love for myself and my body, those moments are really rooted in community and also stripping. But we'll talk about the stripping. A lot of my queer identity has to do with community. It's really central for me to what it means to be queer. Years ago, I heard someone define queer as those of us who experienced such alienation and loneliness early in life that we grew up to be people who never wanted anyone else to experience those things. That stuck with me, and I believe deeply that we can be part of one another's healing in profound ways. What I want to suggest to you all today is this vision for community-powered self-love. This idea that queer community can be a locus of growth and a sanctuary where we can rest. It can be a place of safety and connection. Queer space can be a place where each of us learns something about how to accept and love ourselves more deeply. So what keeps us from healing in the first place, from really deep compassion and self-love? It's shame. Shame alienates us, tells us that all of our worst fears about ourselves are true, and that we're undeserving of love. That's strong, isn't it? The good news is that we can deconstruct shame. So for all the TED nerds, Brene Brown, yeah, she's amazing. Go Google the Brene Brown. All right, so she's done an incredible amount of research around shame to understand it. And she tells us that the antidotes to shame are connection, empathy, and vulnerability. She says We cultivate love when we allow our most vulnerable and powerful selves to be deeply seen and known, and when we honor the spiritual connection that grows from that offering with trust, respect, kindness, and affection. So we need community spaces that allow opportunities to deconstruct shame, to connect with authenticity, and where we can each see ourselves reflected. But not every queer space is made for this. I think we have a lot of spaces that alienate part of the community. And there are lots of ways that happens, but here are the big ones, in my opinion. We have spaces that rely on and reinforce ideas of homonormativity and present this very narrow view of what it means to be queer. And a lot of these spaces are also really completely desexualized, which means that we've made a move to make queerness more palatable by saying that being queer has nothing to do with sex, which some of us beg to differ. And then we have community spaces that are really about being cool. There's this sense of you must be this cool to enter, which for a community made up of people who were the weird kid on the playground doesn't really make a lot of sense. But there it is. And then, I think this is the big one, we have all of these community spaces that don't meet intersectional needs, and so they become inaccessible in one way or another. We have spaces that are created without a thought for sick and disabled queers, without involving trans folks and folks of color or poor folks or other groups in organizing. When we have events that aren't created from an intersectional standpoint, we send a message to folks who are affected by multiple oppressions that they aren't part of this community. So no space is going to be perfect for everyone, but we can do a lot better. We can create beautiful queer spaces that are open and affirming to everyone who's there, with those precious opportunities to connect and open ourselves to express ourselves with authenticity and vulnerability. I want to share with you a little bit about one particular community space and to offer it as a model of what can be. Debauchery is a monthly queer strip show. Queers stripping for queers in hot, anti-oppressive space. You have a ticket. So 3 things about debauchery that I want to propose as applicable in some way to many community spaces and that relate to this idea of community space that inspires self-love. This is also where we're going to talk about the stripping. So first, debauchery is radically sex positive. This means that we encourage all of the performers to bring a deeply personal performance style. It means that we encourage the audience to celebrate this raw sexuality that they're seeing on stage. It means that it's a space where it's okay for everybody to feel really hot. And it means that we celebrate consent and we honor boundaries. We also work from an intersectional perspective. This is the place where we're most imperfect. And it'll always be that way because each of us has such different needs in a space. But as organizers, we believe in doing everything that we can to affirm that queer community space is for everybody. So debauchery is for queers of all genders. There's no restriction on who's invited to be there. We work really hard to create access and safer space for marginalized folks and to include as many people as we can in that space. Third, we're oriented towards service to the community. In the 4 years that we've been here in Seattle, we've raised over $10,000 for different organizations serving the community. With stripping, right? Stripping, and then we do all of it, right? So what happens, because people come to the show, they come to be involved in the space, in part to be of service, and to give, and to participate in and support community. There's this incredible spirit of generosity there. Dollar bills flying everywhere. It's great. So because of the way that the show is organized, debauchery has been a space where I personally, and many others, have experienced profound growth in our capacity for self-love. Being in radically sex-positive space has meant that I've had opportunities to get up on stage and be incredibly vulnerable, to be mostly naked in front of a room full of people, and to know that the audience is witnessing and honoring that vulnerability. In that space, I can be silly, I can be serious. It becomes this sort of laboratory where I can play around with expressing my sexuality and my creativity in different ways. If I'm not feeling great about some part of myself, like basically every day, then it's really healing. I can get up on stage and accept the energy and support that the audience is giving me. If you've never tried it, a room full of queers cheering for you to take off your clothes and then celebrating whatever you're putting out there, that's a really affirming experience. Highly recommend it. Our work around intersectionality at Debauchery means that it's a space where I get to witness and celebrate lots of different people. The community at Debauchery, both on stage and in the audience, were really diverse, totally different than what you see represented in media or normative queer spaces. At Debauchery, you'll see a lot of celebration of a whole range of gender expressions and body types, and everybody brings something really unique to their performance. And there's something that happens when you're in a space where everyone is expressing themselves authentically. For me, that opportunity to celebrate beauty in so many different people means that I'm able to allow myself to see my own uniquities and my own beauty. The fact that the space is so focused on service to the community and that spirit of generosity means that when I show up there, I'm in community with amazing queers doing work that really nourishes my soul. There's a lot of work that goes into producing a show every month, and there's a sense with everyone involved that the work is a pleasure, because we're all coming to it with open hearts and a desire to contribute. I think that means something really different for everybody. For me, it's that generosity and an opportunity to be of service, those are core values of mine. And so in addition to the stripping, which is awesome, I get this opportunity to experience parts of myself that are really easy for me to love. And that opens up a whole lot of space for me to be more compassionate and gentle with myself. So all of that blends together, stripping and bodies and a lot of glitter, and all these people coming together to create magic and hold space for one another to just be, to take some time to just celebrate queerness together. We get to see ourselves reflected and honored, which is critical. And afterwards, we go out into the world, fortified by that experience, more centered, with deeper capacity for self-love, powered by this moment of really authentic connection with our community. My charge to you, all of you, is to go out and create community spaces that inspire self-love within each of us. Your space doesn't have to be about stripping, but if it is, I will totally take my clothes off there. Just make it about love. Make it vibrant. Make it unapologetically queer. Bring marginalized folks to the center. Create that space with an open heart and the intention to be of service and do something great together. Build community, knowing that as you do, you create opportunities for each of us to connect and cultivate profound, soul-expanding self-love.